Hello, Scenesters. Have you ever heard of the movie Heart Huckabees? Well, in the late 90s, early 2000s time period, we were treated with just all sorts of fresh and original film content that would forever change the face of pop culture. But even in an era dominated with uniqueness and each movie trying to differentiate itself from one another, Heart Huckabees stands out. Whereas modern movies seek to align themselves to other accepted and mainstream intellectual properties, this movie was seeking to carve out its own message and niche. Heart Huckabees accentuates that era of original screenplays and is one of the first of its type to directly talk about existentialism and applied philosophy. So what is existentialism or applied philosophy? Even though it's unlikely to hear a term like existentialism every day, you've definitely heard of the term existential crisis, and you know that it's a weird way of saying somebody is feeling lost, is missing their motivation, or questions whether or not they want to continue life as is. They might be questioning their identity, their goals, or their root motivations, and it can look and seem like depression in the sense of a person seeming sad or losing their desire to pursue their regular hobbies. The difference between depression and existential crisis, though, is that depression is kind of a broader term and encompasses more scenarios, with the main ones being related to the idea of loss, like the loss of a loved one or the loss of a relationship, like through death or losing a pet. I have a video about depression if you're interested. Existentialism, though, is focused on our identities, and is basically the study of how our identity is the driving force behind a lot of our behaviors. That the reason we do everything is because of our identity and whether or not our actions actually serve that identity or detract in some way. Furthermore, it is how happiness seems to be tied to the fulfillment of this abstract identity, whatever that means for each individual person. Applied philosophy is when we put a philosophy into practice and see how it changes our lives or try to quantify the results it produces. Similar to how sticking to a workout or diet plan can yield results, so too can maintaining certain practices or disciplines in relation to our attitudes and how we see the world. We've talked about purpose and goals a lot here at Psychology and Movies, which is why I was so delighted when I first encountered this movie and its topic of existentialism, and a few of its practical applications, which I hadn't really thought a lot about until I saw this movie. In many ways, existentialism is very much like psychology. Existentialism is the study of how we form our identities and whether or not our thoughts, behaviors, and goals are in a healthy dynamic with that identity. Because sometimes people do things that are not in line with their true identity, and we call this self-betrayal or existential crisis. Many movies are very existential in nature, exploring the roots of someone's values and the origins of a character's priorities, where they follow and observe why somebody is the way that they are, and whether or not their life turned out to be successful based on their identity, or if it's a type of self-betrayal like I discussed earlier. Movies like Citizen Kane, Into the Wild, Forrest Gump, or even Star Wars prequels if you think about it, are all examples of existentialist character study movies. When a person feels like they have sacrificed their own wants, values, and desires to preserve their social image, or fails to create an authentic identity that they can fulfill, we call that existential crisis. Not to get off tangent, but later on we'll talk about a movie called Serious Man, where that main character undergoes a lot of self-betrayal. When our identity loses stability, or when our actions do not really serve our true identity, we call this existential crisis. That could be a movie like The Wrestler, where the main character has a tough time reconciling his life and identity outside of the ring. Today, though, we're going to do a deeper dive into Heart Huckabees, a movie that I've never quite seen any other like, and the overall main film that we will be discussing. While many character study films are soaked in existentialism, I've never seen one get into the weeds of philosophy and its own topic of existentialism and metaphysics so deep without feeling over-encumbered or just too heady or just plain corny. Sharing a clip would bog the video down, but an example of that would be the weird fatalist philosophy dialogue they had to cram into the Matrix sequels. The movie today, though, the one we'll be discussing, is a lighthearted romp that serves just fine as a basic story and fantastic comedy, but the fact that the movie also serves as a parable, a vehicle towards truth and enlightenment, really elevate this movie to the highest tier. Because it's one thing to deliver truth and information like I try to do in my videos, but another to make things inspiring and humorous and having that feel-good positivity to really help facilitate the growth of this movie's message. I'm talking about Heart Huckabees, starring Jason Schwartzman, directed by David O. Russell. Dustin Hoffman is in this. Oh boy, is he fucking great in this. He and Lily Tomlin are hilarious as characters. This is my favorite Mark Wahlberg movie. Naomi Watts, she's great. It's got a really good ensemble cast. Jude Law, Lily Tomlin, Isabelle Huppert. I don't want to leave anybody out, so I dropped everyone's name basically, but they all needed each other for this to work, which is kind of a theme of the movie as well. The movie begins when Jason Schwartzman's character Albert, a well-meaning but mentally tortured and struggling environmentalist, hires a pair of existentialist detectives to investigate a bizarre but seemingly harmless coincidence he's been having, and to hopefully shine some light on whether or not his goals of saving this marsh are even feasible, or if he should just quit. These charming and peculiar detectives then begin inserting themselves in Albert's life and shaking things up in ways that unfold a deeper plot. And they're great. I love them in this movie. We find out, of course, that Albert is trying to save a marsh from getting bulldozed to make room for some commercial real estate. But his movement has been hijacked by a smooth-talking corporate type, Brad, played by Jude Law, looking to exploit the image of Albert's eco-friendly group as a type of soulless PR stunt for a major retailer called Huckabees. One of the more engaging things about this movie is for sure the existentialist detectives tasked with observing Albert. While the Dustin Hoffman character gives Albert and other characters applied philosophy, pragmatic things they can actually do to improve their condition and understanding of the world, the Lily Tomlin character provokes reactions to get characters to reveal themselves. And one of the first things Lily Tomlin's character reveals, through her spying and kicking the hornet nest so to speak, is that Albert is very jealous and insecure about the Brad character, especially in regards to his girlfriend, who is the commercial face of Huckabees. It's also revealed that Albert wasn't totally honest when he explained his predicament. So what was he hiding, and why was he hiding it? Albert's obsession with his coincidence and his pairing with various people throughout the movie highlights the existentialist concept of interconnectedness. It's a type of search for meaning, and the idea that we see ourselves or see significance in others, that everything happens for a reason and nothing is coincidental. And of course, we're given surreal visuals to try and express this theme. This theme of interconnectedness tends to be very comforting and reassuring to people, and Albert being a poet might especially resonate with this idea of interconnectedness. The idea that we are all one and therefore capable of empathy and sharing a moment, of true connection. This movie also postulates that this true empathy from lived shared experiences is one of the deepest joys and longings that we have as individuals. Albert's obsession with his coincidence also distracts him from his insecurity regarding Brad, who represents an amalgamation of antagonists Albert has had all his life. His jealousy and hatred towards Brad are interesting because they extend into facets of Brad's personal life that have nothing to do with Brad's management of the Open Spaces group. Visually, Brad is directly contrastive of Albert, taller, more conventionally groomed with shorter blonde hair and in an executive suit. We later find out, as we're introduced to Albert's parents, that Albert has been dismissed and undermined all his life, and never taken seriously or respected by the people closest to him. He's learned to expect betrayal and neglect. Not only does Brad's takeover of Open Spaces have echoes of Albert's parents dismissing, undermining, and neglecting him, but Brad's life and persona highlight a lot of things lacking in Albert's life, like the approval he should have gotten from his parents. Brad in many ways represents the son that they wished they had, handsome and tall with a good-paying, stable job, a purchased home with jet skis in the garage, and a beautiful model girlfriend. It's almost like Brad's physical likeness conveys to Albert all the ways he's inadequate, almost telling him, "You're a loser, and if you were more like me, you wouldn't be such a loser." But everything about Brad's life represents a type of illusion that Albert has both resisted and rejected. Albert has launched a type of rebellion against this consumerist, yuppie vision of happiness that Brad represents, and has tied his identity and purpose to resisting materialism, and resisting this modern-day Calvinist but largely consumer mindset that people should just put their heads down and work and spend and not reflect too much deeper. Notice it's always very neglectful people such as Albert's parents who want others to embrace this disconnected perspective. Albert's interest in poetry, his fascination with nature, is all about resisting his parents and society's efforts to push him into becoming invisible or like a worker drone of sorts, as well as him seeking the attention, recognition, reinforcement, and connection he never got from his parents. Although it's never directly expressed, it's my interpretation that Albert is not simply unsure if he should quit his environmentalism, but his true fear is having to become more like Brad in order to fit the social mold and become what his parents want, as well as what society seems to want in order to get that approval and fit in. But at what cost? Because if we have to abandon ourselves in order to not be alone, are we really authentically embraced and accepted then? And yet, there are tangible benefits to Brad's life that cause Albert to feel jealousy and inadequate. Albert's parents and Brad's persona represent society's push to bury and sacrifice the true authentic self in favor of building up a social image. The idea that happiness as a construct is based on who has a perceived higher social status, conveyed through people presenting entirely false versions of themselves, like people often do on social media. And of course, Brad does actively undermine and betray Albert at various parts of the film, similar to how Albert's parents did in his childhood. Albert's fear of betrayal is why he's so defensive around the concept of being in love, and might also partially explain his interest in environmentalism, as the environment is incapable of betraying him like a person would. And you'll notice Albert's parents encourage him to abandon himself and buy into the illusion of social status, as does Brad with his girlfriend Dawn. One thing that individuals have struggled with more recently is the anxiety that if we don't project this image of success outwards, that more bad things will happen to us, or that people will think that we are losers and treat us accordingly. This is why Brad is such a meltdown towards the end of the movie, and why Dawn was so perfectionistic and hard on herself early in the film. Brad melts down partially because he rates others based on social image, and partially because he knows social image is largely an illusion. So he is aware many people celebrate and view it as a sort of guilty pleasure when a seemingly perfect person exposes their humanity and flawed side a little bit. And then we see they aren't as perfect as they present themselves, and that helps us to feel less threatened or inadequate. One of the major messages within the movie is the idea of destroying illusions that keep us from realizing our authentic selves. Illusions that keep us on autopilot or going through the motions of life, but with minimal agency or autonomy over ourselves. When Albert is introduced to Tommy Korn, the Mark Wahlberg character, we're given another important philosophical dynamic in regards to destroying these illusions. The ideas of nihilism, skepticism, and futility or absurdism. To understand this, let's take the most basic concept of God and religion and the idea that God has a plan and everything has a reason. Skepticism isn't necessarily saying that nothing is purpose or reason, but more so that people can buy into what are called convenient truths or comforting lies, meaning that religion, karma, etc. could just be comforting lies people tell themselves or pass down through generations to deal with the stresses of a difficult world they don't fully comprehend. Things like death and sickness, or even things like regret or suffering. When we take it a step further, we get nihilism and futility. The idea that there is no plan or purpose, that everything is chaos, and there is no such thing as interconnectedness. Each and every entity is totally alone, and all things are futile. This philosophy of futility and absurdism is perfectly emphasized with Tommy's obsession with getting rid of petroleum products. Without going into huge detail, Tommy is against the oil industry for environmental and humanitarian reasons. But even with his awareness to this issue, there might be nothing he can do about it as an individual, and indeed his daily actions might even support the petroleum infrastructure. By buying food, spending money, etc., he's indirectly supporting industries and people that all use petroleum, and therefore financing and enabling the petroleum industry. Even though Tommy's obsession with petroleum seems silly and arbitrary, it's the perfect summary of absurdism. The idea that a person can be burdened with a task they can never resolve. In Tommy's mind, petroleum could mean the end of all life for his kids and grandkids, but there's nothing he can do to stop it. So is the solution to bury his head in the sand and just ignore it? Or does he have a moral imperative to enjoy life as much as he can, in spite of being doomed? Or should he task himself for looking for solutions, even if his efforts might be futile? Which mindset is the true illusion? Would ignoring the environmental implications of petroleum be Tommy buying into the illusion of the world, that everything is okie dokie? Or is the cynical view of doom an illusion that would keep Tommy from living his life to the fullest? Similarly, despite Albert giving his best effort, maybe there is absolutely nothing he can do to save the Martian wetlands, and it's pointless to even try. Absurdist philosophers give the image of Sisyphus from Greek mythology, pushing a boulder up a mountain, and the existentialist depression of knowing that we are called to do the impossible, that we're given just enough knowledge to have a desire to change things or want them a certain way, but not enough knowledge to actually lead the change. And the depression can cause people to turn away from society and become nihilistic, the feeling like nothing matters. There's a loneliness and disconnect that we don't quite have a word for in the English language, and it happens when a person feels like there is no God or connectedness to anything. Or even stranger, like maybe there is some purpose or interconnectedness out there, but that we are an outsider looking in. that we somehow ended up here by accident, and when we go back into nothingness to be forever forgotten. And this loneliness and fear can creep up on us. You will notice that many characters on their paths towards self-actualizing go through phases of loneliness and feeling isolated, or feeling incapable of truly being understood. It's almost as if companionship and shared experiences, whether it be romantic or platonic, are key to being a healthy individual. Although this movie also illustrates at various points that two people can share a loneliness or trauma that can inspire a deep empathy. And indeed, that loneliness can be a force that propels two people together, as illustrated with Tommy's relationship with Dawn and Albert's relationship with Catherine Vauban. One of my favorite scenes of the movie is this love scene between Albert and Vauban, highlighting the true absurdity of love. It's my interpretation that this scene is symbolic that love represents a long-awaited freedom from inhibitions. But also it's two people bringing a type of weirdness together. This scene made perfect sense to me instantly, having studied and listened to Buddhist ideas of love, such as those by Thich Nhat Hanh, where he espouses that love is two people bringing their hurts and emptiness together in the attempt to fill one's own emptiness with another person's emptiness. And by being so weird, they can finally feel secure and accepted. That might seem confusing, but consider how love is generally viewed as rooted as two people being attracted to each other for various positive qualities. Buddhism, as well as this movie, illustrate how that is only an illusion, or at best just part of the picture. The truth is that our loneliness, insecurity, and longing are what drive us to seek out people that can understand and empathize with our loneliness, and that's okay. It's not necessarily a bad thing that these positive outcomes are rooted in negative feelings originally, and are in fact some of the building blocks of interconnectedness. This is similarly illustrated by both the Tommy and Don characters pursuing these paths that alienate them from others, as well as experience isolation and rejection from people close to them. But it's this alienation that causes the universe to align them together. Similarly, Albert and Tommy were drawn together from an initial phase of loneliness and negative emotion. Albert was drawn to the detectives because of his own doubts and insecurities. Maybe the purpose of these negative emotions is to compel us to go out and seek relationships that vindicate us. So what are the messages of this movie? One of them is that happiness lies along the road of self-discovery, but many people resist this self-discovery because it would be too challenging or painful. And some people opt out of this road to self-discovery and settle for illusions, like social status and social image, but these people suffer in the form of existential crisis. I actually watched another movie exactly about that called The Serious Man, about a man who basically gets betrayed by his entire community and family. And although this seems dire, it kind of gives him the opportunity for a clean break, if he wants one. But rather than start a new life afresh and become a new person, he clings to his old life, however miserable, unfulfilling, and abusive. But especially clings to his social image that he has spent an entire life cultivating and investing in. And how it would look if he left and abandoned everything, even though the people that would be judging him already don't respect or care about him as it is anyway. You would think that he has nothing to lose, but his culture basically promotes a type of disconnect and lack of empathy, and this is hammered home by the mysterious scene at the end of that movie. I guess I'll explain real quick. His son is having a bar mitzvah, and this is a chance for the elder rabbi to have a genuine heart-to-heart talk with the son about everything that is going on, and the implications of adulthood and responsibility. Instead, he ignores all of that, gives him back some contraband that was taken from him, and tells him to be a good boy. Yes, I understand it's a metaphor for second chances, but without giving the boy any spiritual guidance or empathy, it's basically telling him to give the appearance of conformity and caring about social image and hiding your authentic self in favor of a false illusion designed to fool people into thinking that you're somebody that you're really not. And who really benefits when we pretend to be someone that we think everyone else will like, and then they in turn pretend to like this false image that we have created? Another major lesson of the movie is that we must shatter as many illusions that trap us as possible. Illusions that serve as ways of being, but that don't really serve us, and this is best exemplified by the Dawn character rejecting the illusion of fame and beauty and recognizing she was allowing herself to be exploited. But most importantly, having an awakening and being much happier and more mentally engaged than a new persona that she creates. This movie is not outright anti-establishment, but it does advance the idea that human drama and individualism is a necessary component to true interconnectedness, and that no establishment or external framework can solve everything for us, and therefore we must look inward. This is illustrated by Tommy's loneliness and rejecting petroleum, leading to his encounter with Dawn, who has also lost people on a soul-searching journey. The last thing that we'll discuss is the power of perspective and positive self-talk. Throughout this movie, the detectives offer fresh or challenging perspectives that push our characters to see things in new ways, but always from a place of support, like how they challenge Brad and Dawn, and this leads to changes and realizations in both of them, or how Vauban gives Albert some much-needed support and empathy that he's never had. You'll also notice that the detectives are all completely confident in their identities, and this gives them an internal strength that I know others wish that they had, myself included. The supportive, positive perspectives the detectives have allows our characters to grow. But more often in life, I feel like we see the opposite, where characters receive unhelpful or discouraging advice from people around them. Once again, like that movie A Serious Man, where even well-meaning people fail to connect with the protagonist and encourage him to disconnect from himself as well. That's because it takes a very special sort of insight to both support and nurture, but also to challenge and embolden. That's all I have for today. If you like this video, please hit like and subscribe as it helps my channel grow and reach new people. Or leave a comment, as this helps my engagement, and I love reading most people's comments, which are often very knowledgeable and supportive. This is Psychology in Movies. I am Movie Review Justin. Stay healthy and informed.